Hi and welcome to the next edition of Gigmann TV. In the studio today we've got a brilliant blues singer-songwriter. Moved to the USA about 5 years ago. Penned his first solo album in 2009, produced by Peter Frampton. He's worked with the likes of the blues greats B.B. King, Jeff Beck and so on. Recently he's been getting back to his Manx roots. He has recently filmed a new movie called Island Bound, a very Celtic themed film about the roots of Celtic music and how it's grown out throughout the world. And he's also recorded a brand new album called The Outsider. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to have Mr. Davy Knowles in the studio with us. So if you don't mind bearing with us, Davy,
you're all good. You're all good.
New to this.
Absolutely, you're all good.
Okay, so for people who might not know you, could you just give a brief history of your career?
Well, it has been brief. I started playing when I was 11, got very lucky over here on the Isle of Man, helped by an awful lot of people. And at 19, myself and the band at the time, Backdoor Slam, went out to the States. We got a record deal out in the States and we did an awful lot of touring. And from then, really, I've been very, very lucky. Gotten to play with some magnificent musicians, got to learn from some just amazing people, and we're just plugging away at being a musician still.
Brilliant, that's
I'm a lucky
great.
boy.
Very good. So can you tell me what sort of influences you have? Who would you say your favourite artists are to listen to?
There's just too many. I mean, the reason I started playing guitar was Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. That was Sultans of Swing was it for me. And then from there I discovered people like early Eric Clapton stuff with John Mayall. The Beano album is a really famous, just tremendous album, and that particular record was so interesting because Clapton and John Mayall covered all of these different blues artists. You know, the first track was an Otis Rush song, the next track was a Freddie King track, and so it was through reading all the liner notes on these records that I started to kind of work backwards and figure out where all this music had come from. Yeah,
it seems you're very passionate about it. Do you find that's a passion that you put into your music?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have some sort of historical base in what you're doing. No matter what you do. For me, being a musician is discovering as much as I can, not just current stuff, but stuff that's come before me, to understand it and learn it. And I love the stories. I mean, more often than not, music is a story of an individual, and it's exciting to learn about that. It's a study, an exciting study.
Yeah, it is indeed. That's great. So can I ask, you were in Backdoor Slam, which was your first breakthrough band as such. Yeah. Three-piece. Yeah. How do you find working as a three-piece differs to working as a solo artist? Not the obvious, but in terms of writing processes, things like that.
So, well, I mean, I was the major songwriter with Backdoor Slam to begin with. Not to take any credit away from the rest of the guys, they're fabulous musicians, wonderful people. Yeah. But really, my role was the songwriter of the band. I wrote most of those tunes. They brought their own parts to it, but those tunes were mine. So the writing thing hasn't really changed so much, other than you get older, you find different influences, you probably become a little bit more open-minded, and so I would say my songwriting has changed just because I've experienced more. Yeah. But working as a solo artist is very different. You have a little bit more freedom in that respect. I miss having a band context. I miss having a band, but you gain a lot of freedom. If I want to go out and do a solo acoustic thing, that's not a problem. Or we can add a keyboard player, or we can add a horn section, or whatever. You know, you have a lot more flexibility with that.
Excellent, that's great. And do you find that audiences are different to you when you play in the three-piece to playing solo? Do you get a different reaction? Is the vibe in the air different?
Sometimes. I mean, it depends on the gig, really. I mean, try not to do a solo acoustic set at a festival or something like that. You want to be.
Tracy Chapman did it at Live Aid,
I think,
and that was the making of her, wasn't it?
She's an exception to the rule. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have a loud band, whether it's a three-piece, four-piece, five-piece, what have you. It's great to have a loud band, you know, for big energy. But sometimes it's just lovely to play acoustic,
yeah,
and just be a little bit more gentle with things.
It brings a naivety to the music, doesn't it? Like an innocence to it, I think.
Completely, it's the raw form of the song you wrote, really.
Yeah.
I'm rubbish at anything else. I can't play piano very well, and so really just sitting and playing acoustic guitar is how I write. So it's nice to be able to do that live. That's how it was, you know.
Do you find, say, at the end of a really tiring work day, you've been playing in the day, when you get home or when you've come off tour, do you still pick up your guitar and just chill out with it? Yeah,
I still do. Much to the dismay of my fiancée. Yeah, it is an addiction being a musician. I mean, you have to play. It's not like you're compelled to pick up an instrument constantly and play, figure something out, or you hear something and you go, oh, I've got to learn that. It's just part of doing what you do, really. You just get lucky enough to call it a profession as well, and that's,
definitely. You know, not many musicians get the chance to play out and do it for a living. It really is the dream. So you know,
it is.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm really happy for you. It's great.
Thank you.
No worries. So you played in our live session for Us Now Roll
Yeah.
Away. Can you tell me the story behind that song? I know it's the name of the Backdoor Slam first album, but what is the story behind the song itself? It's a beautiful song.
Thank you. Really, that song was written when we'd just gotten wind that we were going to be going to play in America, actually. With the kind of things had started to roll a little bit. We were starting to finish that record. The record deal had started to kind of, start. And I was walking up near where I grew up. It's up at the top of Portsmouth, just below Cregnish, and there's a beautiful walk called Glen Chas. And I was walking along there, and I was just feeling this, desperately, excited. Yeah. But at the same time, I love the Isle of Man. I love being from here. This is just an amazing place to be from, and so I knew I was going to miss it. But it was also that youth kind of the naivety of wanting to go and see a bigger place. So really, that song came about from that walk. All of the talk about in that first verse, like the cliffs drop down to meet the big blue deep. Well, that was literally just where I was walking, and it just kind of came about quite quickly, really. And the idea was just to write it down and write it as soon as you could before I forgot it. But I really, that song has meant an awful lot to me.
Brilliant. So the days before iPhones, how did you remember your songs? Did you have a dictaphone with you? I used to do that. I used to go to work and I'd be there at 9 o'clock in the morning and a song would come into my head and I'd have to sing it to myself the whole day because I didn't have anything to record it on.
Well, that's exactly what I did. Yeah, just hum like a lunatic. But I still like doing things the old-fashioned way. There's a tactile feel, writing things down instead of typing. And I like that, and I think it also makes you write differently because you have to make sure what you're writing is meaningful and right, because you're committing. There's a psychological thing there. I think you're committing ink to paper, and so you have to make it count. Whereas you can just delete or what have you.
It has to be authentic.
Exactly, yeah. You have to mean it to write it down. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not worth writing down. So, I think that tactile, old-fashioned thing it's a great way of writing. Still.
Yeah, I think trends today. We've got all this technology under the sun, and it's a brilliant thing. We've got the site, but I think there's a certain part of our civilization that is screaming out for authenticity at the minute. It really is, and I think it's a nice way of you describing that when you're putting pen to paper. It's almost like you're signing a deal with that bit of paper, isn't it? You're signing a deal with nature, because it's a natural thing and it's an earthy thing. And I think that's a very rare thing these days. So
I think so.
I commend you for that kind of
thing. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we've touched on Backdoor Slam.
Yeah.
So you guys split up and you wanted to carry on by yourself. So you went to Davy Knowles and Backdoor Slam and you did your first album with, first solo album with Peter Frampton. So could you tell me a bit about that and what it was like to work with him?
Oh, he's such a lovely bloke. We had a mutual friend who lived in Nashville who is no longer with us. He was a wonderful songwriter. And he rung me up and said, I want to put your name in the hat because Frampton, he works a lot out of Nashville and he's looking to do some co-writes.
Cool.
So he stuck my name in the hat and I thought nothing of it. And a little while later I got a phone call through, and it was Peter, and he really wanted to work together. It took us a few months to find, you know, when we were both still enough to meet up. But we ended up hitting it off straight away. He's such a lovely guy. I mean, he's a disarming person. You walk into a room with him and you know who he is, you know what he's done. And he knows who he is and he knows what he's done. And he's just immediately puts you at ease. No, you know, no embarrassing being starstruck or anything.
Yeah.
He was just wonderful. And creatively we really hit it off. We wrote a lot of songs together. Not all of them made the record, it was just writing for writing. It was great. And it wasn't until I decided I wanted to do a George Harrison tune.
Right.
And we were talking about these songs, we were talking about this George Harrison tune, and Peter had actually played on the George Harrison original. And it was then I thought, we're talking about this like it's a record already, and I asked him, would you like to produce it? And he said, absolutely, I'd love to do it. So it came about really just quite, it's an overused word, but quite organically. And to work with, he was just magnificent. I mean, there's nothing like having someone like Peter Frampton standing over you while you're doing a guitar solo to scare you. He was great, he was just wonderful, really opened my eyes. He's such a melodic person, musically, such a kind person, personally, and we've remained good friends. He's a good chap.
That's great, that's great. When you first got together in the songwriting room, how quickly did your first song emerge?
I think we had within an afternoon we had a song. I think it was, yeah. We both brought riffs and ideas to the table, and then you just kind of pick and choose, and generally, as long as you're honest, it's all good. It's when you start kind of going, oh, I don't like that, but I don't want to tell Peter that I don't like it because he's Peter Frampton.
Yeah.
You can't really do that. You have to go, this is what I would do with it,
yeah.
and you have to be honest, and that's when good stuff happens, I think.
But imagine being an artist himself, he respects that because he's had to do it at some point in his career as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just he sold 60 million of them. That's the difference.
Crazy days.
I think I sold 60. So it's
I doubt it.
It was just a great experience, and it still is. Whenever we see each other, it's a wonderful experience.
I believe you've got a working relationship with our friends that were in the first episode of Gigmann TV, Nick Barlow and the Bad Noise.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I first saw you playing with Nick and the Bad Noise down at Port Erin on the beach about a year and a half ago. Brilliant gig. And I believe that you recently did a victorious gig with them at Port St Mary. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, they're just such a great band. I've been a fan of what they've been doing for a long time, and they were kind enough to let me sit in and play a little bit with them, and it's just great fun. They're just great musicians, great people, and the songs are just wonderful. So really, I think it all really started at that Port Erin gig, and we've done a few things since then. And yeah, the Port St Mary gig was great. They were playing there for Big Beats for Hospice, so just a fantastic cause. And I grew up in Port St Mary, that's my hometown, and I think I even went to play school at Port St Mary Town Hall. So it was great to go down there and play and be part of a fantastic evening and good music.
That's great. You really did buzz. You could see that when it was a spot-on gig.
It's great, and it's just no pressure. Have fun with it, and that's the idea. That's what music is.
Exactly.
It's great. That's why I love them. It's a great band.
I think actually, from what I can see, the musicians that do really well in their careers are the musicians that enjoy it.
Absolutely. That has to be the biggest part of it, or why bother?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, tell me about Island of Culture and your job as ambassador.
Ambassador. It's lovely. It's a massive honour. I feel very, very honoured that they have called me an ambassador. So what I decided to do really for it, it's not, it's such a big honour. I thought I needed to do something different for it. I'd never really touched on Manx music while I was over here. I was still so obsessed with American music and Americana. So I figured it was a good opportunity and good timing really to revisit that, have a look at that. And originally the idea was just to do an EP, maybe a little, a small album type thing, and record a couple of Manx traditional tunes and maybe write a couple of songs in the style of. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to do that in an authentic way, I need to study it, I need to look at it, and I need to understand it. And then I thought, well, while we're doing that, it might be kind of cool to show that process.
Yeah.
And then, so we got together with Christy and Dave at DAM Productions, and they loved the idea. They wanted to help out with the production of it, which is amazing, and they're just wonderful people. Dave Armstrong recorded the first Backdoor Slam album, and Christy sang on Rollaway. So, I mean, we've got a long history together. We knew it was going to be good fun. So we started the project, and as we started this film, we kind of thought, well, hang on, what if we take it to America and see how it's come over, you know, over the water to America? So really, we got this big project out of something that originally was just maybe record a couple of songs. So it's been really, really exciting, and something I never thought I'd do. And I was never interested in being on film, being on camera, doing anything like that. It was just kind of just happened, and I've really enjoyed the process.
When's the release date? Have you got a release date for it?
Well, we don't have a firm release date. The Isle of Man Film Festival is happening at the moment, and so we're going to be showing something there. But the final edit, I'm not sure really. It would be nice to get at least some sort of edit out before the end of the year, so it's still Island of Culture.
Yeah. I've seen the trailer to it, and it looks absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
It does look very, very good.
Thank you.
So tell me about your new album, The Outsider.
It's been a long time coming. It's been 2009 was the last record, so this has been a long, long time coming. And really, I'd been touring and touring and touring, just all over the place. Hadn't stopped for a few years, and it was time to put my feet up in a touring sense and really find a different way of writing, perhaps, or collect some different ideas together. I felt like I'd gone a bit stale songwriting, so I needed to do something different. So I took a little bit of a break, if you could call it that. It wasn't really a break, but a break from the road to look at songs. And I started working with a gentleman up in the North of Yorkshire in Hempton Bridge called Steve Chrysantho. He's a great producer, great guitar player and songwriter. So I started working with him, and things started to come, and we wrote some really good songs, and I'd collected the songs that we wrote with the songs that I've been writing on this little break, and we put them together, and that's The Outsider. We did a pledge music campaign, which was fantastic, and we got a load of support from there. So we are just about to release that to the pledge music campaigners, people who pledged.
Brilliant.
And then there'll be a full general release later in the year, and then back on the road.
Oh, right. So how long do you think the next tour will be?
I don't know, probably a couple of years. It just depends on how well it goes, really. It might just one gig and go home if it's... But no, I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road in a big way again.
It's a release, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard work. I mean, it's difficult to explain to people who haven't done extensive touring, but I mean, it's hard work, but it's great. I mean, it's what you ever all dreamed of. You know, what I dreamed of as a kid was touring, and especially somewhere like the States, you know, where it's so different, and it's great. It's wonderful.
Do you think American culture has influenced this third album as well?
Yeah, well, I would actually...
Do you carry it around with you?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, because I've lived in America now for a long time, my first two records, Backdoor Slam and the Coming Up for Air, the second record, I think they were probably more American influenced, because that was what I was listening to constantly. But you know, being in the States and being surrounded by it, I actually wanted to listen to other things, so I started listening to more British things, and then with the Island Bound project, Timor Manx thing. So I do think there's actually probably less of an American influence this time around, and maybe more of a British influence. Maybe not. I don't know. Other people might hear different things, but that's what I think. And
the album itself, would you say it's your favourite album? Well, all artists say that when they say a new album, don't they?
Well, absolutely. And
it's your baby.
Yeah, of course it is. And they all are to some extent. You always go back and you listen to something and you go, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that. But you can't afford yourself that luxury. You just have to get something out there. You have to do the very best you can. It's a stamp. There it is. And you know it's the very best you've done at that moment in time. 10 days later, you might you might change your mind. Yeah, I think this is the best thing I've ever done.
Brilliant.
I'm excited for it. I think the songwriting is better. I think the guitar playing is better. I think the singing is certainly better. So yeah, I think it is, until the next time.
Yeah, exactly. And your audience, you seem to have quite a dedicated audience as well. How do you think they will find the new material?
Oh, well, I hope they like it. You always hope they like it. It's difficult when you release an album. It's nerve-wracking because you've worked so hard on it, you've put your heart and your soul into it, and some people just, it won't be for them. And I got that with Coming Up for Air with the second record. Some people just, it wasn't what they wanted. So, and that's fine, but you can't please everyone. You just have to make the very, very best music you feel you can. Yeah. And it's just the most wondrous feeling when someone else likes it. Yeah. You know, and that's the way I look at it, really, is do the very, very best I can, and I'm very lucky that there are some people out there that like it. That's brilliant. So online, where can people follow you if they're not following you already? I'm on Twitter, just twitter.com, Davy Knowles, for inane, ridiculous posts. Instagram, all that good stuff. Facebook, I'm on Facebook, and then davyknowles.com as well. Brilliant, okay. Well, thanks for coming in, Davy, and thanks for doing the session. It's been absolutely fantastic. Cheers, mate, thanks for bearing up with us. Oh, you're all good. Cheers. Thank you.